And it's PLB with Basketball News back with another video. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about round one of the playoffs so far, what has happened so far. Obviously, not all series are over, but there are some sweeps. Boston swept the 76ers, and the Raptors swept the Nets. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about my second round predictions for the Raptors versus the Celtics series. So if you like this kind of content, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you get notified whenever I upload a video. Link to my other channels in the description below. And let's go ahead and get into this video. Let's try to get this video to 7 likes. And yeah, let's go ahead and get into this video. So, the Celtics versus the 76ers series is the first topic of today's video. And the 76ers just simply did not look good in this series. They did not look like a good basketball team in this series. And I didn't really realize how bad they would be without Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons, it really showed in this series to me how bad of a coach Brett Brown is and how bad he was for the 76ers as their coach. Obviously, he didn't have much to work with for his first few years. They barely won 10 games. That was before the, I guess you could call it, process. That was when they were getting top picks, and that's when they were drafting Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, which were both good draft picks, but they just do not work well together because Joel Embiid needs the ball in his hands quite a bit. But Ben Simmons does a little bit more. Ben Simmons, I personally think, is the better player. And Brett Brown experimented at the power forward position, which I think is interesting. I think it would work better with a team that has a good point guard like maybe the Warriors or whoever. A team that has a good point guard could use Ben Simmons as a power forward or even a small forward for that matter. And he could be really good. But you've got to get the perfect scenario for Ben Simmons to succeed. And Philadelphia with the 76ers is just not there. Now, here are what I think the Philadelphia 76ers could get back. I think they could possibly get back a good shooter. I'm saying possibly a Bradley Beal. I also think possibly a Devin Booker. If Devin Booker wants out of Phoenix, I don't think he necessarily wants out of Phoenix. I think he's stayed through the worst years so far because they've got DeAndre Ayton and Ricky Rubio right now. I think he's stayed through the worst years in Phoenix, so I think he's ready to finally win with the Suns. And the 76ers, Embiid cannot be the only star on a team. He has got to have another star that can shoot. Now, I know Joel Embiid can shoot the three, but he cannot shoot the three good enough. But he needs a good shooting guard, I think. Shooting guard is a position that I'm targeting at. Because Tobias Harris, I know he's overpaid. It's simple. And Tobias Harris is not worth his money at all. He's a 3-and-D player at best. He is not a second or third star. He's a 3-and-D player. He can play some defense. He can shoot the three a little bit, and that's about it. And he can take the ball to the rim a little bit too. But Tobias Harris, At power forward, they have have got Al Horford. Al Horford was not good this year, and I think any way to dump that contract, you do it. Obviously, you're going to have to get matching salaries. I think you want to get a player with more value than what Al Horford is, because Al Horford and Joel Embiid just do not fit well together, and they're similar players. I'm not saying Al Horford is as good as Joel Embiid, but they're similar players, and they just don't work well together. So you need to dump that contract, and my advice for the 76ers at the trade deadline is, or at the in free agency, is you, for one, try to trade the contract of Al Horford. And if a Ben Simmons trade is there and you know that you're getting that piece back, whether it's a Bradley Beal, a Devin Booker, or whoever, you've got to do a trade if the Ben Simmons trade is there. A player that I think is interesting, that obviously the Timberwolves don't want to trade because they want to keep Karl Anthony Towns happy, that I think could fit perfectly on the 76ers, is D'Angelo Russell. And I think D'Angelo Russell could fit well on this team because I think it'd be a good trade for the Timberwolves. I think it would be a good trade because Karl Anthony Towns can shoot the three. Um, I think that's a trade that you might want to consider. I know you're trying to keep Karl Anthony Towns happy there, but I you might want to try that trade. So Shake Milton is their point guard for the future. Let's be honest. Unless they draft a point guard in the 2020 draft and somehow, and if they choose to move up, which I don't see in a weak draft. Obviously, it's point guard heavy with Cole Anthony, Tyrese Halliburton, RJ Hampton, Nico Mannion. And they could possibly even get Nico Mannion at their pick, LaMelo Ball as well, Killian Hayes. Lots of point guards in this draft. And I think even with the pick that they've got, which would probably be in the 20s, they could get Nico Mannion. And I think Nico Mannion can kind of fall in this draft. It may seem a little weird, but I think Nico Mannion could fall a little bit in this draft. I don't think he's a top 10 pick. I think that's just an over pick, I guess you could say. And I don't think that. I don't think Shea Milton is their point guard for the future, in my opinion. And their shooting guard, Josh Richardson. I think Josh Richardson is a great player. In the right situation, he's a great player. And I say that because he can play defense. He can play some good offense, too. He was great on the Heat teams. That he was kind of the main star, let's be honest. And he wasn't even really a star. He was just a really good player for the Heat. And a player that was really good for them. And I know he's not going to be good with the 76ers. Not nearly as good. I'm not saying that he's a bad player. But I'm saying you've got Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons already there. I don't. If the Ben Simmons trade is there, there's no reason why you don't trade Ben Simmons. It is proven that Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are not going to work. You've gave it the experiment. You've gave it time, and it's just not worked. So let's go ahead and move on to the Celtics. And the Celtics here, they played really good in this series. Kemba Walker is looking great. Wish he was on the Hornets, but he's not. Couldn't pay him. That's a rant for another day, though. But Kemba Walker was playing great in this series, and I think if Kemba Walker can play great in the playoffs, the Celtics are going to make a deep run. And I know they don't have a center, but neither do the Clippers, and the Clippers are a team that is in title contention. And I personally think that the Celtics have more weapons than the Clippers. And I say that because Paul George has not been good for the Clippers. Let's be honest, he's been trash so far in the playoffs. And I'll get to that in a minute. But for the Celtics, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kemba Walker, they've got a lot more weapons, I think. And Gordon Hayward, whenever he comes back, is going to be a good piece, whether he comes off the bench or starts. I think probably start. And the Celtics are a really good team. And I know the center spot's going to be a problem, but it's going to be a problem for the Clippers as well. And I don't see it as too much of a problem for them. I think they're a good team, and I don't think the center position is going to matter. And I thought in this series, the reason I picked the 76ers in 7 because I thought it would be a close series. I also thought the 76ers bench was going to be better. I also thought Joel Embiid would dominate a lot more in this series than he did, because he just did not dominate as good as I expected in this series. So the Celtics are a really good team, and we'll get to my prediction in a few minutes. But let's go ahead and talk about the Clippers now. They're the team I picked to win it all, and they're not looking like it. I think they could easily get beat by the Mavericks in the first round. And the Mavericks are a team that I always thought was kind of going to be sneaky good in the playoffs. And I say that because you've got Luka Doncic, who's a great player. Kristaps Porzingis, same thing. And I know they don't have the same weapons as the Clippers, who have a lot better of a bench than they do. But they still are a good team. Seth Curry's been great in the bubble so far. And they're a good team. It's just they don't have the same weapons. But I think they're a team that could take out the Clippers if the Clippers don't play better. If Paul George doesn't play better. This is a team that is supposed to be the top defensive team in the league. And they're just not playing like that. And Paul George is the main reason for that. His shot's not falling. And I just don't know how much else I can explain it, because I mean he's just not playing good. And the center is a disadvantage for the Clippers. If Ivanka Subak is on Kristaps Porzingis, there's no way that the Clippers are going to have an easy time with having pretty much no center that's worth a crap. I know Montrezl Harrell's good off the bench, but he's good in 3 minute stints. And these ideas that he's going to get like a 4 year, $80 million contract is ridiculous for a player like him that could only play 3 minutes. That is absolutely ridiculous, I think. And the reason I think it's ridiculous is because there's no point in paying him $20 million a year to pretty much play 3 minutes in spurts. And I know that may be good for that 3 minutes that you can get run and gun basketball or whatever. But it's just not good for your team that you don't have a starting center that you're paying $20 million a year. That's just not good. So now let's go ahead and get to the Raptors versus the Nets series. The Raptors are a lot better of a team than the Nets. The Nets were playing with G League players pretty much. It was like a G League team versus a title contention team. And I think the Raptors are the team in the Eastern Conference right now. I just don't see another team that could beat them right now. I know the Bucks are good, but I just think the Raptors have. I think they're better than the Bucks right now. And the Raptors, Lowry's been good. I know you have to rely on Lowry in late game situations, and I know that's some people's problem with the Raptors. That's not my problem. I think Kyle Lowry is a good player to be relying on late. He's a veteran. He's good. They could look a lot different after this year, obviously, with Fred VanVleet being a free agent. There's already rumors that he's going to New York with the Knicks. Here's the thing with Fred VanVleet. I think he might be a player that wants to be the only star on the team. He wants to be that one star on the team. And with the rumors that the Knicks are going to bring in Giannis and stuff, then Fred VanVleet's not going to be that only star on that team. And I think he wants his own team right now. I think Fred VanVleet has proven to the basketball world that he is good enough to be the only star on a team. And I know he's been playing a lot of like catch and shoot with the Raptors. I think that's a good position for him, and I think if he wants the best for his career, I think he stays with the Raptors. And I say that because they've got a great coach there. Just won the Coach of the Year again, and he's a great coach. You've also got Kyle Lowry is going to be the point guard. Until next year, I think is when his contract is up, which is good. I think a backcourt of Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet is a great backcourt. I personally think, just because Lowry's a great playmaker. And Fred VanVleet, I think, is a good catch and shoot shooter. And I think any team should be willing to give him a good amount of money. And I say that because Fred VanVleet is, if you put him in the right position, I think his best position is as a shooting guard. Then he's going to be good. Also, Serge Ibaka, I know he's got a big contract, but he's been really good this year. And I think he's been probably worth that contract. He's been a big piece, especially after Kawhi Leonard left this team. He's been a big piece for them. Marc Gasol also is going to be hitting free agency. I say they bring back two of those, being Serge Ibaka and Fred VanVleet. I don't think they bring Marc Gasol back. But the Raptors were just the better team in this series, and I think we all expected that. I thought the Nets might pull one, and win one is what I meant, but they're just not the Nets are not a good team without Irving, Durant, Dinwiddie, Jordan. I mean, it's kind of simple. So, next is the Nuggets versus the Jazz, a game that I was watching live, and Donovan Mitchell is going to be a pain in anybody's butt that plays the Jazz. And I'm not saying necessarily watch out for the Jazz, but I'm saying if a team cannot get him, does not have a great defender on him, then he's easily going to average 30 points a series. And for the Nuggets, Jamal Murray was great. But the main problem that I saw from the Nuggets in this game was that they were shooting a lot of quick threes. Jokic and Murray being those two that were shooting the quick threes, obviously. And this was a very close game, and it was a fun game to watch. Donovan Mitchell was great. The chemistry for the Jazz was looking a lot better than I thought, and that's great. I want to see the Jazz do good. Michael Porter Jr. didn't play a lot in this game, and I can't blame him because I can't blame Mike Malone because he's not a good defender. And at that point, they needed defense because Donovan Mitchell they couldn't stop. He dropped 50 on him. They couldn't stop Donovan Mitchell, and putting Michael Porter Jr. in was not a player that was going to stop him. And next, we'll talk about the Rockets versus Thunder series. The Rockets lead at 2-1. The Thunder are a team that I thought could be sneaky, especially if they got an easier first round matchup, possibly versus the Jazz. I thought would be an easier one, even though I don't think they could have stopped Donovan Mitchell either. I think they would have had more of a chance because obviously they have Chris Paul. And I thought they could possibly stop Rudy Gobert with Steven Adams. And I thought the Thunder could possibly win a series versus the Jazz. But now they play the Red Hot Rockets, and Russell Westbrook's not even been playing. So the Rockets are a good team. I'm not saying watch out for the Rockets because I don't think they're. I think they're going to have a beyond tough series if they play the Lakers. Because they're just going to have a tough series with their defense is. I know they've got PJ Tucker and Robert Covington, who are both good defenders, but their backcourt cannot stop LeBron James if he plays a point guard position. And obviously the Lakers looked bad in the regular season. But for me, they're starting to look like a good team. And now we're getting into the Lakers and Trailblazers series. They're starting to look like a good team again. Anthony Davis has learned how to play basketball again. LeBron James has been good. So the Lakers are finally learning how to play good basketball again. And it was hard to predict this series. Let's be honest. And that's because you didn't know what the Lakers were going to have after a struggle so far. Now let's go ahead and go to the Bucks versus Magic series. 2-1. Obviously, a lot of Bucks fans were scared after the first game that the Magic won. The Magic are just not a better team. And I know the Magic have Giannis, but here's my thing. I don't think the Bucks can make the NBA championship right now. I don't think they're a better team than the Raptors. I don't even necessarily think they're a better team than the Heat right now. I think the Heat have more depth with Crowder, Iguodala. They have Tyler Hero. They have Duncan Robinson. They have Kendrick Nunn. They have Jimmy Butler. They have Bam Adebayo. They have Myers Leonard. They have so and so. They have so many pieces on that bench. I don't think and Goran Dragic, too, who I think is a great sixth man for a team, and watch out for him to get a decent contract in free agency. I just don't think the Bucks are better than the Heat, the Raptors, maybe not even the Celtics if they keep on playing like this. And I say that because the Celtics are a good team. They have a lot of weapons. And if they have, and I know they're going to have a problem stopping Giannis, but with all that scoring, I think they could beat Giannis in a 7-game series. And I just don't think Giannis has that verified second star that he needs. And I'm saying that because Chris Middleton is a great 3-and-D player, but he is not a player that deserves a max contract. He's not a max contract player. And soon they're going to be giving Giannis a max if he stays there. And that's for another video. But my gosh, the Bucks are just not better than the Raptors. Maybe not even the Celtics. And I don't even think better than the Heat. So the Magic, Jonathan Isaac I thought was their sneaky player for the playoffs. Because I thought he could possibly stop Giannis a little bit. A little bit, not all. But I think he could stop Giannis a little bit, possibly. And the Magic are a decent team. They're an 8-7 seed team every year. They're going to be that in a weaker Eastern Conference. But maybe the Wizards get that spot next year. Especially with a pretty high draft pick this year. They get maybe a Devin Vassell. That's who I predicted in my mock draft, link in the description below. Or you can watch that video too on the channel. Next, we're going to talk about the Pacers versus the Heat. The Pacers, they're looking bad. And I thought the Pacers could be a sneaky team, especially if they were at full strength with Sabonis, Oladipo, Turner, and Warren and Brogdon all playing at their best because I think their starting lineup's good. But their bench dangerously scares me. Their bench is just not good. And Oladipo's not been looking good. He's not looking anywhere like his old self. The Heat, they've been looking really good. They've got the 3-0 lead right now. And the Heat, they're a good team. It's simple. The Heat are a good team, and that's kind of all I have to say about that series. Now let's go ahead and get into my Raptors-Celtics series predictions. So for the Celtics versus the Raptors, I think this is a very interesting series with the Raptors having good defense and the Celtics having good offense. Defense too, with Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart and other players. But in this series, the Raptors, you're looking at the point guard position right now. You've got Kyle Lowry versus Kemba Walker. I think Kemba Walker gives a slight advantage, but I think Kyle Lowry is also the player that could stop Kemba Walker. So Celtics get 1, Raptors none. For shooting guard, you've got Fred VanVleet versus the Celtics, Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown is the better player. At small forward, you've got Gordon Hayward, if he plays in this series, especially if he comes back to the bubble. And versus, you've got, who is this? OG Anunoby. And personally, in this series, I go with OG Anunoby as the better small forward. Pascal Siakam versus Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum has proven more and is the better player, but Pascal Siakam is very good. And at center, you've got Serge Ibaka versus Daniel Tice, which is a big advantage for the Raptors in this series. And the Celtics are a very good team. And I think this will be a high-scoring series. And I think this one's going to 7 games. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think this one is going to 7 games. This is going to be such a good series. But if I'm looking late game into a Game 7 of the NBA playoffs, round 2, I look at the Celtics and I'm like, their offense is great. But if Serge Ibaka is in that paint doing what he does, then how are the Celtics going to stop that? Daniel Tice cannot stop that. Semi OG cannot stop that. They just can't stop that. And Pascal Siakam is going to be good too in this series. Kyle Lowry is going to be good. I know Kemba Walker is great on offense. His defense is iffy. Marcus Smart is going to be a great piece off the bench. I still think the Raptors bench has the slight advantage. And for the coaching advantage, I know Brad Stevens is very good, but I think you have to give it to Nick Nurse here. And in this series, it's a very tough series to predict. I'll go ahead and say that. But I'm going to go right now with the Celtics in 7 games. And the Raptors are so good, but I'm just missing maybe a little bit of scoring from them. I think they're going to dominate when the benches come in. Dominate. But I think they're missing one proven scorer. And I think they're missing that DeMar DeRozan type of player for them in this series. And for that reason, the Celtics will win in 7 games. So once more series finishes, we'll do more second round predictions. So that's going to be the end of this video, though. If you enjoyed it, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you get notified whenever I upload a video. If you want to see more long videos like this and more just talking about basketball videos, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you get notified whenever I upload a video. Link to my other channels in the description below. Make sure to check the description to every video. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll be back with more videos soon.